Welcome to Cracked Relic. This is our closing episode for the Bennington Triangle series. So if you haven't yet, go watch all the other episodes and then come back here. I'll be waiting. Don't worry. Go watch the other episodes first, then come back to this one. Odd. Okay, welcome back. In this episode, we're going to cover a lot more. So, welcome to episode 7. Some places are quiet because nothing happens there. And then there are places like the Bennington Triangle. Quiet because they've seen too much. For the past 6 episodes, we followed 5 people who vanished in and around Glastonbury Mountain. 5 different lives, 5 different disappearances, no bodies, no answers, just a deepening shadow stretched over the forest of southwestern Vermont. But this isn't just a recap. This is a descent into the full shape of the mystery. A final walk through the woods where names become echoes, theories twist like branches, and the map folds in on itself. Because to understand the Bennington Triangle, you have to stop thinking of it as a place and start thinking of it as something alive. Let's begin with what we know. 5 disappearances between 1945 and 1950. With no physical evidence, only one body ever recovered, and even that one raises more questions than answers. Middie Rivers, 74 years old, a local hunting guide with deep knowledge of the mountains. He disappeared on November 12, 1945, after walking just a few minutes ahead of his party near Hell Hollow. Search teams found nothing except a single spent rifle cartridge near a stream. No tracks, no body, no final sound. He wasn't just any hiker. He had walked that terrain more times than most of the younger men in that party. When he stepped ahead, no one thought twice. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was already too late. He knew the woods better than the woods knew him, one local said. And yet, the mountains swallowed him like it had been waiting. Paula Welden, 18, a Bennington College student last seen walking onto the long trail in December 1946. She was wearing a red parka. Multiple people saw her heading north. Then she vanished. Her footprints were reportedly followed briefly before they simply ended. The National Guard was called in. Helicopters scanned the tree lines. A clairvoyant from Connecticut was brought in by desperate family friends. Nothing worked. No coat, no body. Her father told reporters, quote, "She would have cried out if something happened. Somebody would have heard. But the mountains didn't hear or didn't care. And she is the reason the Vermont State Police exist." James E. Tedford, a World War I veteran, living at the Bennington Soldiers' Home in 1949, he boarded a bus after visiting family. Multiple passengers confirmed he was on board shortly before arriving back in Bennington. But when the bus reached the stop, James was gone, His belongings were still on his seat. Witnesses described him as tired but relaxed. The ride was uneventful. The driver confirmed no one got off between towns. But when the bus arrived, seat 13 was empty. Luggage intact. His return ticket was still in his coat pocket. Quote, "It's like he was erased," one writer said. That phrase would repeat in other disappearances. Paul Jepson, age 8. In October 1950, his mother left him briefly by a truck while tending to pigs. When she returned, Paul was gone. Bloodhounds had followed his scent to a road near Glastonbury, and then it vanished. His mother said Paul had been restless that week, talking about the woods, pointing to the hills and saying, "I want to go up there." Locals whispered that the mountain, quote, "calls to the young." The search for Paul was exhaustive, lasting over 2 weeks. Posters were stapled to trees. A local paper ran the headline, "Where is Paul?" Frieda Langer, who we just covered, age 53. She slipped in a stream during a hike and turned back alone to change clothes. That was October 28, 1950. Her body was found 6 to 7 months later in an area that had already been searched. Search crews had combed that patch of ground at least twice. There was no logical reason why her body appeared where it did, unless it hadn't been there until later. Her cause of death remains unknown. Her family refused interviews. The press simply noted, quote, "At least one has returned." But even the dead offered no answers. 5 vanishings, 1 unrelenting forest, and a silence that still hasn't broken. From 1945 to 1950, a quiet dread settled over southern Vermont. It didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, season by season, name by name. When Middie Rivers vanished in 1945, the town chalked it up to old age, an accident, maybe a fall. The woods were dangerous, sure, but not malicious. The local paper called it a tragedy, not a mystery. But then Paula disappeared, the very next year. Young, bright, full of life, gone without a trace, in broad daylight. That was the turning point. For many, that's when belief sets in. Belief that something wasn't right. Girls at Bennington College stopped hiking alone. Parents warned their children about the mountain. The woods weren't just dangerous now, they were taboo. By 1949, when James Tedford vanished from a moving bus, people stopped pretending it was coincidence. That winter, a rumor spread through Bennington and Woodford. The mountain was, quote, claiming one each year. Some folks even started calling the disappearance the Deaths. Stores in East Glastonbury closed early. Hunting trips were canceled. Even the Vermont State Police, which had only recently formed, took the situation seriously enough to issue updated safety bulletins about trail precautions. In October 1950, when Paul Jepson vanished, local headlines stopped asking what happened. They started asking why again. And just weeks later, Frieda Langer vanished too. The only one whose body would ever return. Long after hope faded. Across those 5 years, the region's culture changed. Campfires became quiet. Churches held special prayers. Children were told stories that sounded like warnings. Some locals swore the forest breathed heavier in the fall, like it was waiting. One old-timer put it simply, quote, "The mountain kept count." and it was always due. Joseph Citro coined the term Bennington Triangle decades later, but the people living inside it already knew the shape. Drawing lines between the towns of Bennington, Woodford, and Glastonbury, the triangle formed encloses an area of forgotten trails, collapsing towns, and dead-end paths. Glastonbury Mountain stands at the heart like a keystone. Inside that space, things don't behave the way they should. Locals say GPS devices spin, compasses lose north. Dogs refuse to follow tracks beyond a certain elevation. Add to that the disappearances, the strange lights, the voices in the woods, and the occasional figure glimpsed between trees, and it stops being a shape. It becomes a threshold. The most practical explanation: nature is dangerous. Steep terrain, sudden weather, fast rivers, a wrong step in the Vermont wilderness can be fatal. Middie was old, Frieda was alone, Paul was a child. The land doesn't care who you are. But even with nature, you usually find something. A body, a shoe, a trail. These vanishings left nothing. In Tedford's case, they left a bus seat still warm. Nature doesn't erase people like that, but the triangle might. There's a possibility that someone out there was watching the trails. Someone who knew when to strike, who to take, where to hide the evidence. Some speculate that a transient predator moved through the region during those years. The disappearances always happened near accessible routes, close enough to escape, remote enough to isolate a victim. But there's a problem. No pattern, no calling card, no evidence, no motives, no suspects, just silence. A hunter that good would have to be a ghost, which brings us back to the mountain. The Abenaki people, the original inhabitants of this region, warned of Glastonbury Mountain long before maps gave it a name. They didn't just say it was dangerous, they said it was forbidden. To the Abenaki, certain places carried spiritual geography, not just physical characteristics, but energy, identity, purpose. Some mountains were sacred, others were avoided entirely. Glastonbury was the latter. They believed it was a place where the natural and spirit worlds overlapped. A, quote, thin place where the boundary between the world and the next was weak. You know, like me, if I'm ever hiking through those trails, because I don't even think I'd make it through one, to be honest with you. The area around Glastonbury wasn't a place to live or settle. It was to be passed around, not through. Hunting parties refused to camp there. Even experienced tribal elders avoided it during migrations. It wasn't just superstition. It was memory. Something had happened there long before settlers arrived. Something they didn't write down, but didn't forget. Abenaki oral tradition speaks of Menegowak. Probably saying that wrong, please don't come after me. Spirit beings that inhabit forests, mountains, and rivers. They're not demons, they're not ghosts, more like sentient forces, guardians, watchers. Some are helpful, some are territorial, and some are vengeful when disturbed. They believed Glastonbury Mountain was home to one of these things, one that didn't tolerate prolonged presence. People who stayed too long might go missing, lose time, or forget how to leave. Sound familiar? Even directions mattered. There are stories that you were never to approach Glastonbury Mountain from the north, And if you did go in, you had to exit before sundown, or risk not exiting at all. Modern hikers might scoff at those beliefs, but they're still disappearing just the same. The 1940s and 50s weren't just a time of mystery. They were a time of secrecy. MK Ultra, radar testing, remote field experiments. Could the triangle have been part of something larger? Some believe the government used the region for off-grid testing. There are old listening posts near the area, unexplained aircraft sightings, accounts of humming sounds in the night. James Tedford, a veteran from a federal facility, vanishing mid-ride. That smells like eraser. Maybe the government wasn't responsible. Maybe they were just studying what they couldn't explain. The forest is still there, still breathing. In 2019, a solo hiker reported strange music echoing from nowhere. In 2021, a backpacker's GoPro captured a red blur moving through trees, and then corrupted the file. A trail guide from Woodford quit after a season, saying the woods weren't empty. People still hike the long trail. They still climb Glastonbury. But ask any local, they won't go far without telling someone. And they never go off trail. Some things haven't changed. I got goosebumps with that part. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I feel like the red flash is either Paul or Paula, you know, because they were both wearing red when they went out. And maybe, you know, they're still trying to get their way out of there or whatever, and like you kind of see them through the tree. Ooh boy. Okay, you've walked every mile with us, from Middie to Frieda. 5 people, 1 triangle. Maybe it's the land. Maybe it's time and space. Maybe it's something older, deeper, watching from between the trees. But this isn't a story about answers. It's a story about echoes. Middie's footsteps, Paula's red coat, James's empty seat, Paul's vanishing scent, Frieda's return with no voice left to speak. They didn't just disappear. They became part of the woods. So if you ever find yourself hiking in Vermont and the wind goes still and the birds go silent and the air feels heavier than it should, turn the fuck around, because some places don't like to be found. In the triangle, it remembers. This was episode 7 of the Bennington Triangle, and this will be closing out the Bennington Triangle series. As always, sources will be down in the description and coming up in the credits. Thank you for watching.
Gone all the ways, all the days of old, can't return back there. On and on it goes, and time never stops, and the world keeps on turning. Hearts keep on burning while the weatherman interprets the cold. The boogeyman haunts you in your sleep, while the man in the mirror longs for change. Long are the days when you've parted ways with your love. Can't return back there. Don't you know where the wild roses grow? There are tears buried in the snow. Or do you know the one who loved you so? Where are those words? Where is she now? Gone, she's gone. Like the weatherman, she's gone with the wind. See footprints in the snow on the broken road of love, and the moon shines from above. Lo and behold, it's the grave digger's daughter. Everyone's afraid of her, but she's the sweetest girl in town. I set out on the road, I won't do what I'm told. No, I'm looking for love, no matter where it